I always remember Tommy Miller used to talk about Paul Sykes regularly, even in 1986-87 when Paul was really finished as a pro fighter. Tommy used to say that Paul didn't care who he was fighting, all he cared about was the money and whether or not he could have it straight away. There's no doubt about it, Paul had a natural ability and he could fight. He was a very tough, rugged man. He'd have probably annihilated the self-proclaimed best in his era, but he wouldn't train. Paul Sykes was an extremely dangerous man and he could hit as well. He had a lot of natural attributes for a big lad and he was fearless. The Paul the first knew would have a rumble on the street with maybe 2 or 3 guys like it was normal. It was almost like he was a little bit insane and people would look at him as a bully because he didn't know when to stop. Paul was a man that if he was in a crowd with 5 or 6 guys and one of them said something he didn't like, he would put the lot of them away as write-offs, make no mistake about that. Paul really didn't know how to restrain himself at all, and in my opinion that's how he got into most of the trouble that he did. He had no stop button. Going back to Paul's boxing career though, Paul Sykes was one of these fighters that if you gave him £50 extra he'd take a dive. You need to understand the way Paul looked at things. Paul Sykes fighting for his life would kill you. On the other hand, if he could make more money taking a dive, he'd say, "What round do you want?" I remember my old manager Tommy Miller paying a very heavy price and finding that lesson out the hard way. He paid Paul £500 one time before the fight and he didn't see him again for a month. He had basically taken Tommy's money and agreed to fight, then took off on the drink and never fought. He left Tommy red-faced. The trick was to pay Paul after the fight and then you had a fight, because Paul would have fought King Kong. He wasn't bothered as long as he was getting a few quid.